High Hills family, my name is Jonathan. I pastor a church here in the community. It's my privilege to share today's devotional with you. It wasn't that long ago I was reading about the life of David in 1st and 2nd Samuel. David, of course, is most famous for killing the Philistine, the giant Goliath with nothing more than a slingshot and stone. But that was only the beginning of David's life. David eventually is anointed to be king, while there's another king, King Saul, still in office. As you can imagine, this causes all sorts of problems. On 2 different occasions, Saul tries to kill David, and David has to flee for his life. Saul can't leave it alone. Saul is in hot pursuit and actually gets himself into trouble. On 2 different occasions, David has the opportunity to kill Saul, and yet never lays a hand upon him. But as we come to the end of 1 Samuel, Saul is at the end of his life. He's getting ready to die at the hand of the Philistines. But before he does, before he goes into battle, he calls upon the Lord for an answer about what he's supposed to do. But God doesn't answer. You see, Saul's been disobedient. Saul has disregarded what God has wanted him to do. And so Saul takes matters into his own hands, and it ends up costing him his life. We find, though, in 1 Samuel 30, David is in a similar situation. David actually had fled to Philistine country to avoid Saul's bounty on his head. Now the Philistines have kicked him out. David has returned to the town where he had left his wife as for safekeeping. When they return, what they found is a new enemy. Not a new enemy to Israel, but only to David. The Amalekites had burned down the city and had taken the women and children hostage. David and his men, the army, they weep, the Bible says, until they have no more strength. And then they get bitter. They blame David. They speak of stoning him. And here's David, just like Saul, facing another enemy. Having all this pressure upon him. Everybody's telling him what to do and that he better do it or else. With all this pressure, here's the difference between Saul and David. 1 Samuel 30, verse 6. But David found strength in the Lord his God. When David faced all this sorts of pressure, he waited upon God for an answer. He didn't ask God, why has all this happened? But instead he asked, God, what do you want to do? What are you up to? In the midst of all this pressure, what is it you're saying? Not what do all the voices in my life tell me to do. What are you asking me to do? What do you have planned, God? It occurred to me as I read this story that many of us, I think, find ourselves in similar places. No, we don't have the Philistines knocking at the doors. No, we don't have the Amalekites taking our families. But we do have real pressures in this world. And it would seem to me that 2021 is this. Last year, when all this mess started, there was a lot of grace given to us as we all just had to figure out what to do and how to make it work. But I don't know about you, but even in my own life, this year feels different. I feel the pressure not just to perform, but really to overperform, to make up for lost time, to make up for the things that we missed out on. There's a lot of voices in my life who are kind of beginning to ask for things to come back and to return, and you're not sure how to do that yet. And I suspect many of you are in the same place today. In your families, there's pressure to get back to normal. There's pressure just to do these things. For some, it's pressure in your workplace. It's pressure in the community. It's pressure all around us on where we stand on this and where we stand on that. But at the end of the day, these moments reveal who we find our strength in. So I want to challenge you. If you find yourself in a pressure moment, you find yourself stressed and anxious after all the demands and expectations on your life, ask God, God, what are you saying? God, what do you want me to do? And here's what we'll find. God isn't asking us to do something as much as He's asking us to be someone. He's asking us to be His children. He's asking us to trust Him. He's asking us to listen to His voice, to seek out and discern His ways, and then to follow after Him. That's where we find the strength, in Him and in Him alone. Well, thank you, Hills Church, for having me. I hope that God will continue to bless your church. I know that He will, and that in the